God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Shalom and Hashem. Welcome again to another exciting edition of the Torah Watchman Show, only available on YouTube for Google subscribers to go in and see what this Orthodox Jew of a man raised in scientific empirical method, an historian, an investigator between fact and fiction, between legend, mystery, all kinds of things. This title of this Torah Watchman Show is The History Behind the Dome of the Rock, what it is and what it's not. Okay? And the target audience for this Watchman edition is for Jews, secular, Orthodox, whatever, and for Christians and for some Muslims out there too. I want to be very astute and very accurate and not provide my opinion, professional or not, unless I quantify that, okay? I have multiple sources here. I would say they're nonpartisan in that they're not religious, like the New York Times, okay? New York Times, also Wikipedia, some Israeli historical site, websites and things like that. I researched a lot of information based on what I already know, but I wanted to have some peer review evidence to back what I'm about to tell you, okay? There's a lot of confusion about Temple Mount and Jerusalem, okay? As you know, you've seen pictures. If you look up Temple Mount, or in Hebrew, Har HaBayit, if you look up those terms, Google it, Bing it, Yahoo it, whatever, you'll see a big golden dome structure, quite beautiful, sitting pretty much on one end of Temple Mount. And then there's actually 5 other mosques toward the other part of the real estate. There is about 40 acres or whatever, a very large concrete platform, okay, built by King Herod, the great King Herod the First, okay, more than 2,000 years ago. But anyway, the Temple Mount was built, it's a Jewish structure, built on Mount Moriah. If you have a map of Old Jerusalem, which is established and rebuilt by King David and later his son King Solomon, and was expanded. It was only about 20 acres, a very oval, very small city back during the early days of when King David conquered the city from the Canaanites. That was probably about 3,000 years ago, okay, to give you some time span. But anyway, we know about all the unrest in Jerusalem, okay? We know about all the unrest between the Arabs and the Jews and Christians wanting their religious rights appreciated, as well as Muslims. The Jews said we have an historical tie to the land that goes back 3,500 years, all the way up to 4,000 years when Abraham and Sarah left the land of Mesopotamia, the land of the Chaldeans, and came down into Canaan. and interacted with the land during that time. You know, remember Abraham took his firstborn son to Sarai, Isaac, and as a sacrificial offering on top of Mount Moriah, which is believed by tradition and by the sages of blessed memory, our Talmudic sages, believe that that was the same place where King David purchased a threshing floor, which was an oval, very flat surface that you literally threshed wheat with an ox that went around in a circle, grinding all the stalks of wheat and into grain kernels and things like that, not germane. Then it was called a threshing floor. Okay, this is where King David offered a sacrifice initially, and later on, when King Solomon came online as a young man, well, God told him to pick up where King David left off with all the supplies and build the magnificent first temple structure there on that threshing floor foundational area, okay? I'm not going to get into much into that, but I'm going to talk about the Dome on the Rock, okay? It's unmistakable. It's an historic landmark. It's not a mosque, okay? Believe it or not, it's actually a shrine, okay? It's a shrine. Muslim worshippers are allowed to go into the Dome of the Rock. Christians and Jews are not permitted to go there, okay? Muslims have free right to pray anywhere on the 40-acre piece of real estate, which is Har Habit or Temple Mount, that big flat area you can see built up on a platform, literally. They're allowed to pray there during Ramadan or the other sacred Islamic holidays, but Jews are not permitted to pray there, okay? I will get into that a little later on, but that's the status quo policy that's still in force to this day. It's around 1967-68 time frame. Okay, so let's start. Temple Mount, some Palestinians, some Muslims refer to the entire Temple Mount as Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is actually a mosque which can support quite large. It's on one end of Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock is on the other. If you want to think about the spatial relationship between the various structures. So we're talking about Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is on the end of the Temple Mount. Dome of the Rock is on the pretty much kind of off-centered about a third of the way toward the other end, okay? The reason why I'm talking about Al-Aqsa Mosque because people get confused between one Muslim structure versus another, okay? Har Habit or Temple Mount is referred to as Al-Aqsa for one name mosque there that was built after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, died, you know, in Mecca, you know, in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia of today. But anyway, let's get started. So this mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, is sacred to Christians, Muslims, and Jews. The reason why it's sacred to those three large religious groups is because Christians believe that their Messiah, Jesus, was on that area when he was going before Pontius Pilate for being judged of whatever blasphemy and all this. You know, you've seen several movies. I'm not going to mention them here. Muslims, of course, consider that as the third most sacred site in Islam. Not because Muhammad actually set foot anywhere in Eretz Israel or Jerusalem, but because of the story I believe in the 17th chapter, I'm not an Islamic scholar, I'm sorry, in the Qur'an, alludes to Muhammad's night journey. I'll get into that in a moment. But we're talking about the Al-Aqsa Mosque is actually protected as a historical landmark too, by UNESCO. I'll get into that in a moment. But it also is a flashpoint for the protracted Israeli-Palestinian or Palestinian conflict that's ongoing today. Yes, there is a war between Israelis' right to exist in Israel and Hamas, the terrorist Islamic organization that the Palestinians elected twice, maybe three times, to be their government over Gaza. So we have the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There have been violent confrontations between the Palestinian Israeli security forces at the Al-Aqsa Mosque site because they're fighting over territory, essentially religious rights, religious freedoms, all of this. In the 1967 Arab War, Six-Day War, I already did a video on this, and we just got through celebrating Jerusalem Day, Yom Jerusalem Day, the reunification of the East and West Jerusalem and all the land and everything else that was occupied by the Ottomans and Arabs over a period of Persians over a period of time was consolidated under Israeli military and government control in 1967. But again, many Palestinians there, many Islamic extremists there, they don't think one single Jew should even live anywhere in the land, okay? Especially in their third holiest site in Islam, which is Temple Mount or Al-Aqsa Mount, there where the Dome of the Rock is. So let's understand some basics here of the mosque compound. It's been there for many, many centuries, okay? The mosque sits upon, I said, about 40 acres. It's actually around 35, 36 acres, depending on how you map it out, okay? There's other structures on either end that make it a little bit larger, but it's 35 acres. If you walk across the entire piece of real estate, Temple Mount, a lot of Muslim children like to play soccer upon that area, play games and things like that. Of course, tourists go from end to end. They're looking at the site and everything else. And again, it dates back to King Herod the Great, more than 2,000 years ago. The site or Temple Mount is known as Haram al-Sharif, or the Noble Sanctuary. Jews refer to it as Har HaBayit. Christians refer to it as Temple Mount in the Latin as name there. It is in the old city of Jerusalem, which is sacred to both Jews, Christians, and especially Muslims. In Arabic, Aqsa translates to farthest, and I already told you it's on the far end on Temple Mount. It's in spatial relation to the Dome of the Rock, the Golden Dome there. It's referred as the farthest mosque, and this goes back to a story, I think, in the 17th chapter of the Qur'an. I'll get that in a moment. Is an account of Muhammad actually having a night vision or dream in which he was teleported through a magical steed, a winged donkey, mule, kind of hybrid animal with a woman's face, wings, or whatever. So he was transported from Mecca all the way, supposedly, to the place of the farthest mosque, which many Islamic scholars, imams, Orthodox Muslims believe today is Al-Aqsa Mosque on Temple Mount. Okay, just keep that in mind. The farthest mosque and the night vision story of Muhammad on his magical steed flying from Mecca in Saudi Arabia all the way to Jerusalem, and then mounting the climbing on top of the Dome of the Rock or whatever in that area, and then ascending into heaven. Okay, that was referred as the farthest mosque, which is Al-Aqsa Mosque, according to oral Islamic tradition. Okay, so this mosque can hold 5,000 people, like I said before. It's quite large. It faces the Dome of the Rock. It was completed in the 8th century. Okay. The Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, died, I think, around June 8, 625. You can correct me if I'm wrong in comments later on. So get this. Muhammad died on his after his pilgrimage to Mecca. When he returned to Medina, he died around 625. But this Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is referred to as the farthest mosque, supposedly alluded to in chapter 17 of the Qur'an in the night vision, was built in the early 8th century. Okay? This is, Muslims consider the whole compound to be holy, absolutely holy, so holy that no Jew can go there at certain times and during special Islamic holidays. The Jews are out of luck. and they have to ask permission to go up there. And combined Israeli and Palestinian security forces will ensure that no Jew there, even a rabbi, is allowed to pray, is allowed to wave an Israeli flag, not to carry a prayer book, or any kind of religious garb or whatsoever, other than maybe a kippah on your head. That's about it, okay? So this is a critical flashpoint between Muslims and Jews. Often in holy holidays in Islam, you can see literally thousands of Muslim worshippers there, and it is one of their places of pilgrimage, like Mecca. Okay. So for the Jews, Temple Mount, known in Hebrew as Har HaBayit, is the holiest place because it is believed to be the central site of two ancient temples, King Solomon's temple and King Herod, who was a secular, not so Jewish king of Judea, fake king of the Jews during that time, 2,000 years ago, leading up to the time of Jesus, if you want to get some time spent there. Most rabbis, most Orthodox rabbis in our oral tradition believe Har HaBayit or Temple Mount was a place where King Solomon's temple was built, and after it was destroyed later on, where King Herod the Great, or King Herod the First, not his son, built the magnificent second temple there, which was destroyed in 70 CE. But anyway, the second stood for nearly 600 years, believe it or not, the second temple. The second temple, just to give you a small little historical tweak there, was actually a renovated temple structure that Judah Maccabee, rededicated during the time when he's fighting with the Greeks. And even before that, Nehemiah and Ezra, the scribe, when they cleansed the area and reestablished some semblance of animal sacrifices and burnt offerings there, okay? Some people say there were 3 temples, but no, 2 temples. And again, the UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, regards all these structures here, at least those that Muslims consider holy, to be protected internationally. In other words, even though this is property and real estate, a part of Eretz Israel, an independent nation country, UNESCO, which is a subdivision of the United Nations, tells the world that supposedly, Israel is the Jewish nation, only Jewish nation on the planet, but that land there is still in dispute. It's occupied by you illegally, and every Muslim in the world and planet has free access to the area, but not Jews. Okay, I won't get into that too much more. A little bit of history. Israel captured East Jerusalem, including the Old City, from Jordan during the Arab-Israeli War in 1967, then promptly annexed the land. Israel later declared the unified Jerusalem to be its capital. President Trump declared that as well in his administration, Baruch Hashem, by moving our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And many other countries have moved their embassies there too. So if internationally speaking, at least a small subset of countries do recognize Jerusalem unified, reunified, as a centralized capital of Eretz Israel. Under a delicate status quo arrangement, an Islamic trust known as the Waqf, owned and controlled by Jordan, the Grand Mufti in Jordan continued to administer the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, as done for decades. A special role reaffirmed in Israel's peace treaty with Jordan in 1994, which essentially gave away a majority of the land that it won lawfully in 1967, gave the land away back to the Arabs that wanted to kill the Jews there. And want to kill the Jews today. Hamas wants to kill every Jew and drive them into the sea, read their charter. So they gave all the land back in 1994 with a peace treaty. And of course, with peace treaties, you would think that would be a discontinuance of violence Well, no, it has not worked that way. We're in the third jihad right now, Islamic jihad. I can't remember all the terminology, but the fighting, free Palestine, all this stuff is going on right now. So not so much peace there. A lot of Jordanians have murdered a lot of my Jewish brothers and sisters throughout the years and paved their streets literally with the tombstones of Jews in the past. That's all I'm going to say about that. That was actually fact, but I just wanted to assert my educated opinion on that. Israeli security forces maintain a presence in the site. They have IDF troops, they have security forces, Druze, other nationalities work cooperatively with the Israeli government and the Palestinian government over this to ensure peaceful transit of both Jews and Christians and Muslims for shared access over these holy sites, okay? Again, Jews are prohibited to pray on Temple Mount, and Christians are prohibited to pray on Temple Mount too, okay? But Muslims have universal access to that area in their yearly pilgrimages there. So if you refer, some people refer to Israel as an apartheid state. Well, how do you define apartheid? And how do you define what civil rights are and what it's not, and religious freedoms? Well, when it applies only to one group of people and not other people. So that's a little tidbit there. So tensions over what the critics call the shared arrangement. You can thank Mr. Moshe Dayan for that, a previous defense minister in 1967 time frame. He was pushing for this status quo agreement. Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been the prime minister, in my opinion, way too long in Israel, should retire. Okay, it still supports the status quo. And the status quo is supposed to be a mutually assured agreement between Jews and Arabs and Palestinians there, okay? However, the Grand Mufti redefines the status quo as they will, but the Jews have to keep their side of the bargain. So in other words, if Islamists want to build more mosques on Temple Mount, which breaks the status quo, they do it. Like I said, there are 5 mosques on Temple Mount today. One of them includes Al-Aqsa Mosque. Dome of the Rock is not a mosque, it's a shrine. I'll get to that in a moment. So adding to the tensions here, Israel's annual celebration of Jerusalem Day was a flashpoint there. It was in the middle of an election cycle with Mahmoud Abbas. He knew he was going to lose the election. There's a little tidbit there. So he canceled the election and thought that he started an artificial jihad there. Violent, fight within Muslim for freedom and aspiration of independence of the Jewish controllers and occupiers there, then he could get reelected. That's what's happening right now. Yeah, that's why there are missiles and bombs going from Gaza to Israel, and Israel is blowing them out of the sky to the Iron Dome system. Baruch Hashem for that. So all of this is going on. Also, there is some dispute over real estate in Eastern Jerusalem. Supreme Court is legislating, and Israel is legislating over that, pending ruling over that, because supposedly homes that the Arabs occupied used to belong to Jews, okay, during the time of British colonization of that area, okay, when the Ottoman Empire was there, not Germany, okay. So, does Israel want to take full control of the site? Well, some Jews like myself want full control over the area. Rabbi Kahan wanted full control and said why. He's a Jewish. We have 5 Jewish holy sites there. The only holy site that the Israeli government allows us to have is the Kotel, the Western Wall, which is built by King Herod the Great, which is a restraining wall keeping Temple Mount from falling into the Kidron Valley. Okay? But it's very holy to every Jew and holy to me too. But only one out of these 5 holy sites is even allowed. The Jews have to go and get special permits through the Grand Mufti to even go to the Tomb of the Patriarchs in Hebron, for instance. But Benjamin Netanyahu wants to keep the status quo going, okay, even though Grand Mufti has modified it several times in favor of the Muslims. The status quo is not a deal, it's not a law, it's just an informal agreement of recognition, okay? A handshake or whatever. Some Israeli religious groups have long pressed the right to pray at the site. They were requesting this as a right, universal right for every Jew. It's 12.5 million Jews should be able to pray at all of our holy sites in Israel, in addition to Christians and Muslims. I mean, fair is fair, right? But they're still pushing for this. Jordan's foreign ministry has complained about large numbers, so-called status quo, rewriting status quo. Well, what the foreign ministry in Jordan is complaining about large numbers of Jewish visitors on our holy days is a violation of status quo. Hypocritical? Yeah, it's your opinion. In the weeks before the outbreak of violence that they're talking about, it's been about 3 weeks that violence has been going on. The Yom Yerushalayim Day, the reunification, Jerusalem, all of this. Violence at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Give you a tip here. The Dome of the Rock in past has been full of rocks and other lethal throwing implements, knives, and everything else. Also, it is believed by the IDF we're not allowed to go into those mosques and inspect them at all, even for security. We're not allowed to put metal detectors to make sure people don't go up and down Temple Mount with weapons in their hands to kill people, okay? I'll get into that in a moment. But anyway, a lot of the mosques are actually have arms in there for militants to do violence against Jewish civilians, primarily women and children. Some Palestinians attacked Orthodox Jews in Jerusalem. In fact, one car was bombarded with rocks, and almost a Jewish man was lynched, okay, by Palestinian extremists. Also, extremist Jewish groups, maybe ultra-Orthodox, I'm not sure what the sect they are in Judaism, but get this. They said death to the Arabs, okay? Therefore, they're considered to be extremists or even terrorists or Islamophobes because they say death to the Arab. Well, Palestinians have been saying death to the Jews since 1964, okay? So, weird extremists for saying Arabs, stop molesting me, stop trying to threaten to rape my daughters, stop keeping me from praying at my holy sites, leave me alone. So it's wrong for me to say that, but it's not wrong for Al Jazeera and Mahmoud Abbas and other Islamic extremists there to go on broadcast television and radio and saying death to the Jews. Go figure it out, okay? That is a dichotomy of truths. It is hypocrisy at its worst, right? I've told you Palestinians were angered recently in East Jerusalem because there's a land dispute over there over real estate. I already talked about that. The clashes have come. There is as the Israeli government is in political limbo, okay? The Biden administration is trying to talk at both sides of the mouth. Israelis have the right to defend themselves against acts of terrorism. Just like in 9/11, we had a right to invade Afghanistan and kill Al-Qaeda and Taliban terrorists there because they killed 3,000 people in New York, remember? Yes, we remember that. Israel did not protest against the U.S. and or the group of nations that supported us to go to invade another nation and kill Muslims, extremists, okay? So just consider that. Again, you can blame this entire acts of violence last 2 weeks in Israel, it's a month of Saban now, on Mahmoud Abbas, the self-elected president of the Palestinian people. Okay. How have previous clashes shaped the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Well, they made it worse. In 2005, George Bush wanted to reach some sort of agreement there with the Palestinians for if you stop the jihad, stop the violence against the Jews, we'll give you land for peace. Well, they evicted hundreds of Jewish families in the Gaza Strip. That was won in 1967 from the Egyptians after they attacked Israeli assets. Kicked them out and gave the Palestinians there the chance for autonomy and have their own independent democratic state. Right? It became an Islamic cesspool for terrorists, and that's what's going on right now. So land for peace doesn't work out too well when it means that essentially land for peace means all the Jews there on that land are dead or driven away. It's a form of Nazism. Hitler's final solution is Hamas' final solution for every Jew. So in 1990, there was an example of deadly riots over Temple Mount access as well, and Jewish worshippers or Jewish tourists or people that wanting to access the land. My beloved friend, blessed memory, Ari Fuld, was in the IDF at that time. He was reporting this. Several Druze people, that's D-R-U-Z-E, they're an ethnic people, not Arabic, not Christian, not Jew, but something else. Don't want to get into that, but anyway, they were murdered. Their police officers were murdered in a huge flashpoint. Benjamin Netanyahu recommended putting metal detectors to protect everyone, Muslims included. But Grand Mufti, the Jordan Foreign Affairs protest, you're breaking the status quo. Take the metal detectors down. Bibi, we love him so much. He capitulated and took the metal detectors down. Now weapons have free transit up and down Temple Mount. Okay. A lot of Arab outrage over the security measures and everything else. Every time we try to protect lives in Israel, we get blamed, and we're called an apartheid state, and we're called all kinds of racist names, anti-Semitism. I am not finished yet. I have more really good information. So we talked about Al-Aqsa Mosque, and approximately when it was built a couple hundred years after Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, died. You know, it was built around 800 CE, okay? So the Dome of the Rock is unmistakable, is known as Kibat al-Sakra. I'm not good in Arabic, I'm sorry. It's a beautiful shrine. It's not a mosque, it's a shrine. And it's an octangular. It has something inside called a rock. It's supposed to be sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. It's called the Dome of the Rock. There's literally a rectangular dome gold structure. It's actually real gold now, built over the rock, which is the center point there. So the Dome of the Rock was built there historically long after Muhammad died. But in the story of his flying horse again, I'll talk about that briefly, named a Buraq, not a prayer, but a Buraq from Mecca. This is why that Dome of the Rock is so special to Muslims around the world, okay? Because of that prayer, that night vision is alluded to in the Qur'an. And by the way, nowhere in the Qur'an is the city of Jerusalem mentioned, okay? It is implied and assumed that the farthest mosque was Al-Aqsa on Temple Mount, when it was not even built during the time of the Quran was inspired between Allah and his prophet Muhammad, okay? Just think about that, okay? It was also expounded in 14th century by some imams and Islamic scholars. So the real reason behind Dome of the Rock and the so-called Islamic protests and Jews and all this is not over this night vision, which is even Islamic scholars that are more secular, they say Al-Aqsa Mosque is not even in Jerusalem, it's somewhere in Saudi Arabia. Consider that, okay? But anyway, after conquering Jerusalem by the ninth Islamic Caliph, Abd al-Malik built the dome, and this was close to the 9th century, okay? Between 8th and 9th century was built during that time. And as a form of occupation. And you can see this throughout the world. Anytime an Islamic caliphate is set up, like an Iberian Peninsula, There were places in the world, in Africa, they put a big dome structure there as a sign of occupation. So the Dome of the Rock is a symbol of occupation, Islamic occupation over the land of Israel. Okay? And it's actually built supposedly upon the Temple Mount structure, foundational area for a Jewish temple. So, where's the historical chicken and egg there? You go figure out. Quickly, for 1,300 years, the Dome of the Rock served as a flag of victory for whoever conquered Jerusalem. Okay, whether it was the Persians, whether it was the Ottomans, and or the Arabs that are there today, Muslims there today. It's a rallying point. Jihad, yeah. But, in 1099, I like this, it's not a story, it's history. The First Crusade, the Bloody Crusaders, not only did they go there and murder Muslim Arabs, which initially is the cousins to the Semitic Jews, they murdered Jews as well. They murdered everyone. They had blood all over their hand. So they conquered the Dome of the Rock, conquered Judea, Jerusalem, the Temple Mount area, took the sickle off, literally off the top of the Dome of the Rock where it is today, and put a makeshift cross over there. And back during that time in 1099, no Jew on the planet knew where Zion was. They did not know where the Gihon Spring was or Hezekiah's tunnel was. We didn't have access to the land. Even Ramban did not recognize Jerusalem when he visited there. It was completely destroyed. And Josephus, Flavius Josephus, the famous Jewish historian, around 70, 80 CE time frame, did not know where these places were either. But since the Crusaders, paid for by the Vatican, the Pope, and the Roman authority there, they identified that place as the Lord's house. They made it into a Catholic, a Christian shrine, a church. Yeah, they made it into a church until they were driven out by the next caliphate. But when Moshe Dayan, the defense minister of Israel during that time, who was a war hero, he lost one eye, you can read about him, when he was asked what to do with the Dome of the Rock, when IDF soldiers conquered that area, they actually took off the sickle and put an Israeli flag on top of the Dome of the Rock. Can you imagine that happening today? Okay? But they were brave enough to do that anyway. So they said, ask him, the Israeli defense minister, should we take it down? And then he replied, you want the Middle East to be on fire? Okay? So the decision was to forget that and maintain a status quo agreement of preservation of Islamic holy sites over Jewish holy sites. So inside the Jewish temple, the so-called holiest of all, the Holy of Holies, was an entry place forbidden for anyone else other than the Kohen Gadol, which was the Aaronic priesthood, or later on Zadok, a high priest, as righteous and elevated as you can be, only once a year in Yom Kippur allowed to go there. So a lot of rabbis, Orthodox rabbis today, said, we're not really interested in taking over that piece of land. We don't like Muslim mosques all over something considered the holiest site in Judaism, but we're not interested in that because we don't even want people to walk over there because they might trample over the holy holies and something bad can happen to you. Okay? But it's a big tourist area, it's a big Islamic area, and thousands of Muslim pilgrimage there. They go to Mecca there every single year, and their children play soccer matches over Temple Mount. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. But anyway, it is actually gold. In 1963, it was gold-colored aluminum, but actually, the King of Jordan donated 180 pounds, so it is gold. Quite beautiful. Anyway. I already told you about the Holy of Holies in there, based on Jewish tradition, not written tradition, but oral tradition. That is the place of King Solomon's temple and King Herod's temple there, okay? I have a video about that if you want to look into about the Antonia Fortress and all the military control of the Temple Legion of the Roman Empire. Anyway, you can read that. There's a plug-in. So that's pretty much it on this, about the Dome of the Rock. I already told you, give you a little update. An Islamic scholar, historian, this is written by, reported by Robert Spencer. It's been out there for a while. Yamani is right about Al-Aqsa not being in Jerusalem. Of course, he doesn't mean the structure that is called Al-Aqsa Mosque and is on the Temple Mount. He's referring to Al-Aqsa Mosque as referred to in the Qur'an. Exalted is he who took his servant by the night, the flying horse theory, from al-Haram Mosque, the Great Mosque of Mecca, to Al-Aqsa Mosque, the farthest mosque, whose surroundings we have blessed to show him our signs. Indeed, he is the hearing, the seer, seeing. Chapter 7, verse 1 in the Qur'an, if you look that up. Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem had not yet been built at this time. So the night vision and story, whatever, we're not sure. Even Muslim scholars are not sure. It still is an issue of debate right now. But if you go against that theory right there, you may be stoned to death. You may be stoned to death or worse. But I'm just reporting what someone else is reporting. I'm not being heretical to Islam. Okay? I want to trust. If any Muslim watches, I want to trust what you believe in to be true. Because how do I expect you to respect my religious beliefs if I don't respect yours? Okay? Okay, I'm standing on olive branch right now. But anyway, this is what we've been told here. Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem had not yet been built when this verse was supposedly had been revealed to Muhammad. Okay? According to Islamic tradition, he died in 632, June 8th, I believe, while Al-Aqsa Mosque was built in 705. Jerusalem. So it was named Al-Aqsa Mosque based in Islamic tradition. Okay? It was long after Muhammad supposed to have died, but Muhammad never mentioned Jerusalem in the Quran at all, and never physically, historically speaking, never set foot anywhere in Eretz Israel. Okay? So his night journey in Jerusalem on a winged horse called an al-Buraq is clearly false based on historians, not based on imams, religious experts there. They were very orthodox in Islam. That the whole story is legendary despite the fact that the basis of Islamic claim to Jerusalem as a holy site of Muslim. So where I'm getting at, all these things, tradition, history, all this, are not tightly coupled together. In fact, they're 180 degrees diametrically opposed sometimes. There's some things considered legendary in Judaism too, and we say it, okay? For a Jew to lie or to spread rumors or propaganda against our Islamic brothers out there, cousins, Arab cousins out there, it's unseemly, and it breaks halakha to do that, okay? Anyway, thank you for listening to me. Welcome to home again. Tell your friends and neighbors about the Torah Watchman. Ben-Emmett signing out here. Shalom Aleichem to all of you for watching this. I will see you real soon. If you're celebrating holiday or whatever that's going on in your life, please think about our Jewish brothers and sisters in Israel who are at war right now. Most of the population, even in Tel Aviv, are in bomb shelters. That means women and children. Can you imagine living in that situation? And in Washington, D.C., if some terrorist group was launching 2,000 missiles at our capital. See you later.